Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I am your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today, Mitch Light of The Athletic. This episode is brought to you by the Well Coffee House, which is a Nashville area coffee house that provides fresh roast coffee along with house-made pastries, breakfast, and lunch offerings. There are 4 locations to serve you in the Nashville area. Those are in Brentwood, Green Hills, downtown, and Bellevue. You can get more information at wellcoffeehouse.org. The Well Coffee House, where coffee changes lives. We thank our co-sponsor, Wellspire, Nashville's Learning and Development Center, which is located in the Gulch. Today's news presented by Sutherland and Belk, an SEC sports loving injury law firm in the Nashville area. These guys can shoot you straight on your rights when you've been injured in an accident. Call them at 615-846-6200 to get your questions answered. You can also visit them at sbinjurylaw.com. Vanderbilt pulls an upset in Tuscaloosa, snapping a 17-game road conference losing streak. The guy to thank, Saben Lee, 38 points as he spoils Alabama's senior night. That will obviously be a focus of our podcast today. Our guest line brought to you by Bolden Branch, which is run by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I had no clue how comfortable Bolden Branch sheets were until I got them. They are fair trade certified, which means they are made under safe conditions by men and women who are treated and paid fairly. Try them for a month. You can return them for free, but you will not want to. Once you get the sheets, try the mattress. That was voted the best mattress of 2018. Go to boldenbranch.com. That is spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code Vandy and get $50 off your first set of sheets. Our question and answer session with Mitch Light is brought to you by Mark Gent of Simply a Fan. Mark organizes road trips to sporting events around the country and is doing so for several Vanderbilt baseball road series this year. Go to simplyafan.com. Get more information. Tell them you heard about it on the podcast. Mitch Light of The Athletic joins us today. And Mitch, this podcast has got interesting timing because right after you wrote a terrific story about Shane Foster's senior night, Sabin Lee goes and wrecks Alabama's senior night, and that should be fun for us to talk about today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Chris. Yeah, I've been working on that that piece on Shane Foster basically since I started at the Athletic. I thought it would be a fun piece to write, and I thought the timing of putting it on Senior Week would be the best time to do it. And for those of you that have read it, I received a lot of great feedback on Twitter. Thank you very much. It was a lot of fun. Spoke to Kevin Stallings, Vanderbilt assistants Tom Richardson, Brad Frederick, of course Shane Foster, Ross Neltner, Alex Gordon, some people at the Vanderbilt athletic department. Rick Stansberry, the Mississippi State coach, was great. And Ben Hansbrough, former Mississippi State player, was great. So everyone was very eager to talk about just what was a memorable night at Memorial Gym. I tweeted this too. The 2 best college performances I've ever seen were Chris Jackson for LSU against Vanderbilt my freshman year in college, and that Shane Foster. The Shane Foster was, I would put it at the top just because of the way he willed his team to a win. And so anybody who's still interested, you can read about it at the Athletic. Just go to the Vanderbilt page or college basketball or the Nashville page. And I don't think if you do want to subscribe to the Athletic, subscribe through that story. That helps. Not like I don't get paid extra or anything like that. It helps us kind of measure what stories do well and generate traffic and generate subscriptions. So appreciate all the positive feedback, and that was something I've been wanting to do for years, and I've finally able to execute it.
I subscribe to The Athletic. It's well worth it. Hope our listening audience does that as well. How in the world did you run Ben Hansbrough down? That's one of the things I was curious about.
He was the easiest. So he was the easiest person to get, or one of them. I've known Brad Frederick for years, since he was an assistant at Vanderbilt. His first year, actually, he lived right next to me on Fairfax. So I've kept in touch with Brad. We text a lot, back and forth, and so Brad was one of the first people I interviewed, and we were talking about Ben Hansbrough, and he said, I've actually talked to Ben about this game because Brad is now at North Carolina, and Ben Hansbrough is Tyler Hansbrough's brother. So Ben comes to work out, or used to come to work out, at North Carolina. So they've talked about it. So he gave me Ben's number, and I texted Ben just a cold call just, hey, Mitch Light from the Athletic, just doing this story. he, you know how it is. You get in touch with someone, you might not hear back ever, or you might hear back in a day or two. Within 30 seconds of sending the text, he called me. He's like, "Hey, this is Ben Hansbrough. I'd love to talk about it." He said, "I'm driving right now. I probably shouldn't have even looked at my text, but let's talk tomorrow at 9 a.m. or whatever." So we talked, and he was great. A lot of good stuff I didn't even use. So it was one of those. In Stansbury, this is fun too. Like Zach Greenwell, who's the Western Kentucky media relations director. I know a little bit. He used to write for me at Athlon before he got into the media relations business, and I reached out to him saying, "Hey, you think coach would want to talk about this? I'll come up to Bowling Green if need be." He's like, "I've actually heard Rick talk about this game. I bet he'll want to talk about it." So it took a while to pin him down because of their travel. But Zach came back to me and said, "Hey, when I broached the subject to coach, his eyes lit up and said, basically, hell yeah, I'll talk about that. It was the best performance I've ever seen." So, I think Kevin Stallings and Rick Stansbury's quotes were the best in there, probably. The two head coaches, and Stansbury was great. So I did reach out to Jamont Gordon. I never really had good contact information. I reached out to him on Facebook, and then someone I know kind of did. I was hoping to get him, a Nashville native, but I thought just getting the Mississippi State coach and one Mississippi State player, was enough.
At some point, it's kind of hard to add much more to. Man, this guy just kept hitting shots, and once you get as many points of view as you had, so
right. My first draft was even longer, and at some point, you have 7 people saying the same thing. They're all pretty, it furthers your point, but at some point you got to cut some stuff. So, it was there's a couple things people didn't remember. This is small stuff, but for the people that read the story, I thought Ross Nelton had a good quote, basically saying that he kept hitting the offensive glass harder and harder as the game went on, because he was saying there's no way that Shane could keep hitting the shots. But Ross rebounded the Ben Hansbrough miss that ended up the game-winning possession, and Ross did not remember that at all, like just grabbing the rebound. I would have loved to get a quote about that, but certain people have certain memories on things, and like Brad Frederick remembered everything about the game, all these little details, and other people just that's just how the mind works. Some people don't remember things in such great detail.
Yeah, I wonder how much we'll remember what Sabin Lee did against Alabama years from now, just because it's been such an unremarkable year. But whether we remember it or not, that was probably, I don't know if you'd say the Mount Rushmore of great Vanderbilt performances, but it certainly was on the short list. I mean, for him to carry them the way that he did, he just kept hitting shots 3 or 4 feet behind the 3-point line. Maybe one of the signature plays of the night was when he gets triple teamed on the baseline, and I guess it wasn't a great play so much as it was kind of a fluke play. Alabama, I guess when you got 3 guys guarding one, everybody figures, oh, the other guy's got him, and Saban just pivots and gets an easy layup. But however he did it, it just seemed like he kept coming back time and time and time again. And to see a guy take over a game and win one on the road with as little help as he got at times. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Scottie Pippen and Dylan Dessou did a lot to help him, but everybody knew that was Saban's game, and he just put that team on the back and won it himself.
Yeah, obviously the stakes quite a bit different than Shane Foster's senior night game, but I think I saw the stat where that was the second best road performance ever for a Vanderbilt player behind Clyde Lee. Just remarkable. I missed the first half. My son had basketball practice, but you're just looking at the box score. First of all, the minutes played, Dessou goes 34, Saban goes 30, almost 36, Pippen 35, Max Evans almost 37. It's and I'm not trying to make too much of this because, don't put I don't know how to phrase it, but I can't tell you how surprising that win was. I mean, it's not that surprising because this Vanderbilt team has played hard for the most part, and they played well. They've overachieved. But to have the lineup that was on the floor for so many, to basically have 6 scholarship players eligible, and Otan Jankovic has not played like a scholarship player this year. I know he had a 3. But against a pretty talented Alabama team, I know Petty wasn't playing. It's just remarkable. I mean, I was joking with a friend, based on my oral history of Shane Foster's senior night, I wanted to write an oral history of Brayley Albert's alley-oop attempt to Isaiah Rice. I don't know, that kind of went under the radar there, but late in the game or in the second half, one walk-on trying to throw an alley-oop to a 6-foot walk-on, 6'2" walk-on. That just kind of summarized what this team has been forced to deal with. And so, yeah, just to Saben, specifically 38 points on 20 shots, efficiencies, you go 14 for 20 from the floor, 6 for 7 from three, 4 for 5 from three, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, only 2 turnovers. Just an incredible performance. And, we've seen this from Saben, not to this degree at times this year. And, I thought, I don't know if we've talked since, I think we did, the Georgia game. Saben was fantastic. I thought Tom Crean did not have a very good defensive game plan for him. The next 2 teams they played had, really, because if you can bottle up Sabin Lee, this team does not have many offensive options. But as some of that was just Saben making shots last night, and he was terrific, and felt, happy for the guys. They've been battling all year, and, just good to see them enjoy a road game, and just a crushing loss for Alabama there. Their slim NCAA tournament hopes are over, but just a nice win for Vanderbilt, and a really, really great performance by Sabin Lee.
I did not realize this till just now. Alabama had 72 of its 79 points from 3 players.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm looking at. I lost the box score here.
I'll read it to you. They got 30 from Kyra Lewis.
30.
Yeah. 24 from Bolden, player of the game.
Player of the game, James Beetle Bolden, 24 points.
Did you see me tweet at your colleague Joe Rexroad?
Yeah, Joe was obviously kidding.
I said, Joe, I said you need to up your trolling game there.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like the comedy. And again, I stress this on Twitter. The only reason they have player of the games on games like that on TV broadcasts is because they're sponsored. Nobody cares who the player of the game is. But it's just it was the Sabin Lee show. Announcers talking about how great Sabin Lee was. Oh, and today's player of the game is senior Beetle Bolden. After, it was just bizarre.
Who wasn't even the high score for the losing team. So, yeah.
Right. So, that was not too many SEC games where you have 3 players score more than 24 points.
Yeah, and I've never seen Saben just so on point with this 3-point game. And it wasn't just that. I mean, he had 8 boards, 5 assists. He had that huge block at the end on the low block, too, just out of nowhere. It just seemed like every time they needed something, he got it. Yeah.
I mean, there's only so many ways you can say it. He was great. It was, almost not exactly a one-man band, but towards the end of the game, it sure looked like that way. It sure looked that way. And, Vanderbilt free throws, which they didn't do against Georgia. I know Scottie Pippen missed one, but the big one was that first one, because I think they were up 4. You missed that one. And then it's like, oh no, here we go again. So, but those 2 guys made 3 or 4 down the stretch. I mean, it just, you just look at the lineup Vanderbilt was playing. Look, at one time they had basically 4 point guards. When Isaiah Rice was there, look, they had four basically point guards and Dylan Dessou on the floor. So just crazy lineups.
I'm going back and looking at his game log, and he had 34 against Georgia, and he had 30. That was 4 games ago. Games of 10 and 14 in between, and he had another 30-point game. Let's see, when was it? Should have pulled this up ahead of time. Back against LSU on the 5th. Gosh, that's been a month now since that LSU game. So, yeah, that's 3 30-point games out of the last 9. That's pretty special. I don't know how many Vanderbilt players have done that, but I'm not sure that I've seen that before.
Yeah, I mean, he goes 3 for 3 from 3 against Auburn. And then over the next 7 games, he had 3 3-pointers. He went 3 for 5 at Florida. And then, 0 for 1, 1 for 5. He's obviously just a very streaky 3-point shooter. And that's really what's separating him from being a prospect. And I know his name is creeping up on some people's radar. I don't think, this is the year for him to test the NBA waters. I mean, he could test them because there's no, with only 1 year left, there's no harm in doing so. But he is an NBA athlete. He's smallish. His defense would concern me from a size standpoint. And obviously he needs to develop some sort of a shot. But as far as getting places on the floor, he's as good as it gets.
Yeah, I wonder the way he shot the three last night. I think if he can continue to replicate that, then he's got a shot. I don't know.
I mean, if you go 6 for 7 every night, you think you got a shot?
I'm just gonna.
That's insight, Chris. Thank you.
That's why I'm here, Mitch.
Yeah.
But seriously, if he becomes a respectable 3-point shooter, I mean, I think he can. I guess the other thing is being able to pass out of a penetration and things like that. That again, he's been, for 3 years now, he's been asked to play kind of out of his role just because of the cast around him. So it's just, the one thing that the NBA won't be able to say about him is that he has to play outside of his comfort zone.
Yeah, I mean, but your point is you'd like to see him with this floor spread spaced out more, like we thought we would see from Vanderbilt last year. That's why, we were so excited about the prospects with that team. We thought all the pieces fit nicely. Obviously if Darius Garland doesn't get hurt, if Matt Ryan's a better shooter than if he shot better, that really spreads the floor. Then you got a guy like Sabin Lee penetrating. So that, looking back, there were legitimate reasons for excitement. It wasn't just the talent last year. It was sort of like roster construction, where, or at least we thought before last year. And a lot of that, for me at least, was what Sabin Lee was going to bring to the table as a penetrator.
Well, I'm just thinking Aaron Nesmith's got to be sitting on the bench going, man, with the way that he and Pippen are able to get to the hole, basically having 2 point guards on the floor, how many looks would I be getting?
Yeah, he might be an NBA first round. Oh, he's going to be one anyway. But yeah. It's just at the end of the game, they showed all the hurt players. And, we haven't even mentioned Jordan Wright, who's had some big moments for this team, they said back in Nashville, with a concussion. So, I mean, just adding more injuries. And he's another guy that can, that had, like I just said, has had his moments. So it adds even more, craziness to the win last night.
More basketball to talk? Are you ready to move on to baseball?
We can do some baseball.
Yeah, the whole, I guess, Mason Hickman, Kumar Rocker thing right now, I think has got people holding their breath a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, anytime your two starting pitchers Friday and Saturday go through something like that, there's reason for concern. It sounds like, I mean, it could always be worse, but it sounds like it really could have been worse. That neither is long term. You'd be a little more concerned about Hickman just because the nature, not minimizing anything going on with Kumar Rocker, but the injury that can be nagging. We saw what it did to JJ Bleday a couple of years ago. I don't know. My guess is we won't see Hickman this week, and we will see Rocker, but that's just sort of an educated guess. I don't know what you're thinking is.
Yeah, I mean, obliques are what, like maybe 5-6 week injuries a lot of times?
It just depends on the severity of them. I mean,
right.
JJ, evidently Mason Hickman had heard it earlier in the week and then tweaked it. So he was obviously hurt it, but it was able to go Friday night. So it'd be foolish for us to speculate. He has an oblique injury. If it was really bad, it could be 2 months. If it's not bad at all, he might miss a week or not even at all. So we just don't know.
Well, here's a question I have, and I think I know the answer before I ask it, because I think you probably just are as careful as you can be with it regardless. But I wonder if they're a little bit more precautious with Rocker, given what's going on with Hickman. In other words, if you're 99% sure he's going to be okay if you throw him now, but there's that 1% of doubt, and you're already doubtful about Hickman maybe for a few weeks, are you just a little bit more careful on Rocker and using him, if that makes sense?
Yeah, again, it's just so hard to speculate because if you take him for Tim Corbin at his word, which we have no reason not to, although coaches will sometimes they're not as forthright about in injuries. If it was similar to what he had last year, he basically missed a week or missed 10 days and came back and was strong the rest of the year. So if he is fine, there's no reason to hold him back. If they think another week of rest will do better, we'll help him down the road. They'll hold him back. I don't. Especially the nature of college baseball, even though it's a big weekend as far as competition, they're not going to throw those guys out there just because they think they need a win. And quite frankly, there's some pretty good options to fill the innings, even if they aren't able to go. Obviously, you want your two best starters out there, but it's not like the drop off is from there's no chance that Vanderbilt wins if those guys don't pitch.
Well, it's just funny how Tim a lot of times does things with his rotation early in the year that you never would think you'd see coming. Like, if any of us had said Thomas Schultz is going to get a weekend start in February, I think we all would have bet against that, but yet he's had one.
That was probably a lot of circumstance. The fact that Rocker got scratched the day of the game.
Well, yes, it was. But my point is they also had Leiter. They also have Ethan Smith. So it's just not something I would have expected to see under any circumstance.
Right. I totally know what you're saying. My only point, I think you obviously agree, is that if they had a week to plan, there would have been other guys ahead of Schultz. But, that's also shows the depth of their staff, that Schultz would probably have been 5th or 6th on our list for that, and he still pitched well and is a very capable pitcher. Sometimes you go into the season hearing good things about pitchers, and the freshmen aren't quite ready and stuff. I don't remember a year where they've had as many capable freshman pitchers as this year. Do you?
Oh no, it's not even close. In fact, I wrote about it a little bit this morning. But so, are we going to guess that they go probably Eater, Schultz, Leiter in some order this weekend? Was that what you would guess if you had to issue one right now as we do this on the afternoon of Wednesday?
No, my guess is that we see Rocker this weekend.
Okay.
That's just a guess.
They canceled the media session this morning, so there was no statement on that.
Right.
But that'll be interesting. Right. Because he did throw a bullpen, I think Max Hers reported he threw a bullpen on Sunday.
Yeah, or it wasn't Saturday, like the day he was supposed to start. But the question is, let's say Rocker pitches. Do you move him up to Friday, or do you just keep him in that Saturday spot? Leiter pitched 1 inning. Loboki pitched, Sunday. I don't know, was Schultz just a placeholder last Saturday and put him back to the bullpen? Do you move? I don't know if you go Eater from a Sunday to a Friday. So, there's a lot of options, a lot of possibilities. I'll be interested to see what they do. And, UCLA is really good Friday. All 3 teams are good, but UCLA is the best. So how does that factor in?
Yeah, and that's where I was going next. I think what I do right now is I throw Rocker against UCLA in what is, I believe, a true road game, correct? I think that's actually at UCLA's field.
So is USC.
And then you got the TCU game, which should be the second toughest game of the weekend. I believe TCU is ranked again. So you got that on Sunday. I mean, I'm probably tempted to go Rocker, Eater, Leiter in that order. Is that what you do if you're Tim Corbin? Assuming that's the 3?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, and then Leiter pitched yesterday, just 1 inning, so that would give him enough to bounce back. So, good options. Be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, if they feel that Hickman's ready to go, he'll be Friday. But again, my guess is he'll get a week off.
One place where that does give you some luxury, here's the one little variable we haven't discussed, is Eater's a lefty, the others are righties. So perhaps if you've got a matchup in those 3 teams, because, Tim, he's not going to doctor his weekend rotation because I think he'll figure it sends a bad message. Like he kept Drake Fellows in that one for a couple of years in spite of the fact he wasn't the best pitcher most of the time. So, Tim, knowing that we know that about him, I think now, assuming Hickman's out, which I think is probably a fairly safe assumption, then you might have a little bit of license if you're Tim to monkey with things a little bit and maybe say TCU doesn't hit lefties well, you could throw him in that game, or say USC doesn't hit lefties well, you could throw him in that game instead. That might give you a little bit of leeway to do something that he might not ordinarily do if that factors in anywhere as the platoon matchup.
Right. This and the opening weekend of the season are the only weekend series where you don't play the same team every day. So that factors in. So yeah, that's a good point. If it's up in the air anyway, you might as well throw Eater against the team with the best lefty hitting. But I don't know what that team is. So I guess we will find out soon enough.
Well, and then you have the Ethan Smith factor too. Which, again, I would have thought under these circumstances he'd be the guy in there. And maybe he is because he throws 2 innings against Central Arkansas. Probably his worst performance of the year.
Yeah,
Wasn't terrible.
So I don't know if that would prevent him from, I'm sure he could go Sunday, but he threw. I was there for the first 5 innings, and he was struggling with his control, his command, and so my guess is if he does throw, it's probably Saturday or Sunday.
Well, and back to the freshman, here's what makes him so unique. You have several of these guys that you could easily stretch out for 3 or 4 innings. I mean, in addition to Leiter, who we presume is going to start, you got Leboke, Schultz, we've already talked about as a starter, so we know he can. You got Doolin. McIlvain's thrown a couple innings at a time. Maldonado's thrown a couple innings at a time. Now, I don't know that I want to go 4 or 5 innings with McIlvain or Maldonado, but Doolin or Leboke, yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously Leboke's looked really good. I'm far from a pitching coach, but Doolin's delivery looks very smooth. It looks like an easy, not stress-free, much less stress on his arm than some of those more violent pitchers.
And, of course, there's the Tyler Brown angle. He's kind of been a topic every week. Man, I wrote this morning, I think he's going to be okay. I really do. I think it's just a matter of him catching a little too much plate with some 0-2 pitches. I think that's really correctable. But the further it goes, you have to keep throwing that out there a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the elephant in the room right now. I mean, he has not looked sharp. I mean, it's just, 11 hits, sample size isn't great, but 11 hits in 7 2/3 innings, and obviously they gave up a lead in 2 of those games, and then on Saturday Vanderbilt didn't come back and win, but the lead goes from 2-1 to 3-1, and it could have been worse, and put them in a difficult spot, down 2 runs in the 9th inning. So you got Leboke thrown very well. Tim would be very, very, very reluctant to make a move in that spot, but if he's not your best back end guy, you might have to make a move later in the year.
Did you get a chance to see Luke Murphy against Central Arkansas?
No, I had to leave, so I did not see how he looked at all.
He threw an inning. To me, I mean, look, it's a 10-2 game against Central Arkansas, okay? So we're not going to try to extrapolate a lot of meaning. But to me, I thought the most meaningful thing I saw that day was the inning he threw, because it started out rocky. He gave up, I believe the first guy, they tried a shift where the third baseman was playing behind the bag at second, and the guy just slap hit one down third and, could run for days. So there was that start, and then he walks the next guy, but then he gets, I think, strikeout, and maybe infield pop-up, I want to say. But what it was he starts out in that hole, not only gets those 2 strikeouts, but he was pretty efficient. I think all 3 outs came on 1-2 pitches, so it wasn't like he was running the count full and then again he got a chase. He was started to command his pitches. He was really good with his breaking ball, and the fastball, I was writing down velocities. I think he hit 94, 95, 96, and 97 with his fastball. So being able to see him throw both those pitches effectively, we thought Luke Murphy was a guy that would help them coming in. And finally, what we saw on Tuesday looked like a guy that we thought we'd see.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Some shaky outings earlier, but if he can, throw strikes, he's got the velocity, and it's just, you look back a couple of years on some really good Vanderbilt teams that had so few bullpen options. This year, there's just, as the season goes on, and Tim usually kind of whittle down the bullpen, it's going to be difficult since some guys are going to get squeezed out, some really good pitchers. So yeah, it obviously bodes well for the future with some of these guys being freshmen.
Were you around for Isaiah Thomas's walk-off on Sunday?
I was there with my wife and son. I said, okay, we'll leave after the 11th inning, no matter what happens, because we had somewhere to go. But
nice call.
Yeah, so I actually felt, you never predict the team's going to come back down 2 runs in the bottom of an inning, but I thought Hawaii, that lefty they threw for 3 or 4 innings was very good. After that, their bullpen was a little shaky, so I thought that, wasn't shocked Vanderbilt won. You never predict a 400-foot walk-off home run, but Isaiah, it's the second one of the day, and he obviously drilled that, and it was a good sign. If he starts to hit, and that lengthens the lineup a little bit, and if Dominic Keegan and Isaiah Thomas can give you some production, combine that with Austin Martin, Duvall, and Cooper Davis, and I think CJ Rodriguez is going to be he hit the ball hard yesterday. He's going to be a pretty consistent hitter. And then, I don't think anyone saw Carter Young hitting 340 at this stage, and it's not a soft 340. He hits a lot of line drives. I've seen him play a lot, and this weekend will be very telling because you'll be going against much better pitching. But if that guy can stay above 300, that would be a huge plus for this team.
I was knocked out with the flu on Sunday. I'm finally starting to get over it. Did the one that Thomas hit first, because he had 2 home runs, did one of those hit the scoreboard? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, no, I think Max Hurst on his call said it might hit the scoreboard. It was more I think it was more left field over the monster. It was just one of those. It was just really, really high, and the wind was blowing out. Not saying it wouldn't have been gone on a normal day, but he just got it up really high. And then there's no doubt once the wind took over.
Yeah, I don't know. He's got 7 home runs now in his year in 1/5 or so at Vandy. I think that none of them have been cheap. I don't believe.
Yeah, he's got 4 and 51 at bats this year.
The comp that was dropped on him before the season by somebody on the staff was Jaron Kendall. I was like, wow. That's not what I thought of, but I can kind of see it a little bit now. And I think the thing that really stood out for me, I don't know if anybody remembers this, he beat out an infield single this week. It was not like an easy play for the shortstop, but it's one that, when the ball's hit, you don't think that's a hit because the shortstop makes the play a couple steps to his right, and makes a fine throw and everything. Thomas just beat it out. To me, watching him beat that out was about as telling about his game as the power, because I already knew the power, but I didn't know he was as fast as he's turned out to be.
Yeah, good athlete, and made a good catch in right field last weekend. So, Kendall's interesting. A lot of home runs, a lot of strikeouts, and that's I'm thinking. He struck out 10 times, which is 3rd most on the team behind Harrison Ray and Carter Young. That's one thing Carter Young has not done well. He strikes out a lot. So, I think Thomas was one of those guys we looked at this year going into the season. Not a known quantity, but a guy we thought you could just kind of plug in there and he'd be productive. And, he's hitting 294 right now. If he can stay around that 300 mark and provide power, that's what this team needs.
We talked about the pitching depth. No, the hitting is a work in progress, right? But I think right now they seem to have about 13 guys who look like they can play at some level.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they sort that. CJ Rodriguez didn't play on Sunday, and I don't know if Tim's just trying to get to see more guys. So he starts Will Duff. Will Duff hits the ball hard twice. I think and then Colwick got back into the game yesterday for Austin Martin, which I guess Martin's fine. I think Tim said after the game he wanted to make a sub. So there's Spencer Jones was starting early, and we haven't seen much of him. Justin Henry Malloy is struggling. He's a guy that I think is probably going to get squeezed out. But it's not like all these guys are hitting. It's just you're trying to sort out for the unknown spots or the spots that aren't solidified, 2 or 3 spots. Who's going to take him? Is it going to be because you do have some position flexibility there? Is it going to be Parker Nolan? Is it going to be Tate Colwick or Spencer Jones? And I think they're just trying to figure that out right now.
What'll be interesting will be to see if their 27-man roster changes right now, because they've got 13 hitters who are playing a decent amount. They got 13 pitchers who are playing a decent amount. You would presume that the 27th spot will go to Chance Huff, who played a decent amount last year, has not played this year. I'm told it's not injury, but I don't know what it is. I mean, they're 14 games in, he's not pitched. I think something's got to be up. But it seems like they've kind of got their 27 if you include Huff in that. And usually the thing that makes that interesting is even on some of their great teams, you get to players 23, 24, 25. It's like, okay, just pick a guy. It doesn't make much of a difference. But this time it seems like it's really competitive right down to that last man.
Yeah, sorry, yawning there, not because your comments were boring, although they were very boring. But TJ McKenzie's a guy who you might want to take as a pinch runner. I don't know that to be the case. There might be other options there, but I'm always interested. It's something that some schools make public and some don't, I guess. So I'm always interested for these road trips. A lot was made last year of when the Walker Crescente did, as a senior, didn't make that road trip to Texas A&M. But for the most part, we don't really talk about who's on road trips and who's not on road trips because you got your core players that you play, and the guys at the end of the bench by that point of the season, by SEC time, aren't really playing anyway.
Well, I'll tell you the one that surprises me is Matt Hogan, because I thought before the season Matt Hogan was going to be their fourth outfielder. In fact, I thought maybe 2 weeks before the season Matt Hogan was going to be starting in either right or center. And remember, that kid had a home run against Oklahoma State in the fall series. I've not heard anything about an injury. I don't know what's going on there, but that's one that really surprises me.
Yeah, hasn't played at all this year, right?
He's had one at bat.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was looking. He has played in 4 games, so defensive replacement, 1 at bat. Yeah, that me too. I mean, just based on things I'd heard, if you would have told me, I probably would have. Hogan in the mix. And one thing we haven't talked about Sunday, Spencer Jones played right field. Max Hertz, I mentioned on one of the radio broadcasts that he'd been getting work in the outfield, and he played right field, or maybe it was Saturday or Friday. It was one of the weekend games. I was surprised to see Jones out in right field.
Yeah, and if people haven't listened to all the podcasts, I think we've mentioned this before. I don't know if it was on the one I've done with you or not, but from what I understand, Spencer Jones can really run.
Yeah, that's could be. I mean, he's obviously long legs, and he's a very good athlete. So and one thing too about defense is still, they need to shore some things up. Obviously, in that 10th inning or the 11th inning, defense let them down. There's a tough play Cooper Davis didn't make in left field, but you got to make that play. Then obviously the play at home. But Dominic Keegan, I haven't seen a ton of innings, but he's looking like a pretty smooth adjustment to first base, which comes in as a catcher. So that's important.
Cooper Davis has really had a tough time getting reads on balls this year in left. I don't know if that's just a small sample size fluke, but that wasn't the first time. Because the one that you're talking about, the one that cost Ethan Smith a couple runs, he just overran the ball. Like it was, and I know that I don't judge the kid because we saw Kyle Smith have a collision with that brick wall out there in left field. There's not a lot of foul territory, and Kyle Smith was never the same after that. So I'm not knocking the kid, but he goes down there, tries to chase a ball, and it just kind of runs maybe a step past it and falls in just fair. So I don't know what's going on with Cooper Davis, but that's been a little bit of a battle for him so far.
Yeah, it was Eric Kaiser was pitching when that happened. I had a good angle for it. It was in that corner where you're worried about the wall going into the bullpen and the left field wall. One thing that Willie Donick told me, and if you remember, I forgot it was the Indiana State game or the Ohio State regional game where the shortstop overran a pop-up. He says the wind coming off of the state football stadium, the ball always blows back towards the field. Like balls you think are going to be out of play come back. He says watch opposing players always have time with that, tough time with that. I don't know if that's what happened to Cooper Davis. Obviously, he's not an opposing player, but that is when you're worried about the wind and you've got 2 fences/walls there. Yeah, I think that's basically what the problem was.
That's a great observation. I've never thought about that. The one that always hits me with the wind is it seems like there's a little bit of a wind tunnel running out to the alley in right center, and it may have something to do with that engineering building behind right field. I'm not maybe Will Kleiner needs to be the guy to talk about all this stuff, but there are some interesting things going on with the wind at Hawkins Field at times.
Yeah. I mean, the one I've noticed is the left field too, but yeah, so I sympathize with Cooper on that play. I think that was a tough play, but again, you're an SEC left fielder. That's one you probably need to make.
Mitch, we've hit a lot of stuff today. I don't know that I've got anything left to talk about that we haven't hit. I will give you the floor to bring up any topics we haven't discussed that are worth it, and if not, I'll just let you give your Twitter handle and we'll end the show today.
Well, yeah, you can reach me at Mitch Light. And again, just another plug for my Shane Foster story. I did a story on Drew Weichert, which was fun to do, the walk-on, who I know his dad's a surgeon for the Vanderbilt, orthopedic surgeon at Vanderbilt, and travels with the football team. His dad, I don't know if people read the story, but his dad grew up in French Lick, Indiana, and is a cousin of Larry Bird. So I wrote my Drew Weichert story as his 15 minutes of fame, but then he played in the next game and scored there. So I guess he's had 30 minutes of fame. So, it's not, I'm going to be dipping my toe in the writing waters at The Athletic. My main job's an editor, but so you can catch my Shane Foster story and that Drew Weichert story, the ones I've done recently. So, but that's about it.
Well, you set a pretty nice bar with the first piece. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for appearing on our podcast today.
All right, thanks, Chris. Talk to you soon.
He's Mitch Light. I'm Chris Lee. Thank you for listening to the Vandy Sports Podcast.